Story 1. I had fun in college, even with the stress, and I had good moments in high school despite all the teenage moodiness. Honestly, I was happiest as a child before middle school. Back then it was day camp, playdates, popsicles, and television with my sister, playing hunter-gatherer at recess, and jumping on my friend's trampoline. Life was simple, carefree, and full of small joys. I still have happy times now, but I haven't felt that same pure happiness since elementary school. Story 2. When I worked remotely, I wasn't happy at the company, but nothing compared to those cozy fall days working from home with my puppy by my side. Story 3. This is going to sound weird, but during lockdown, everything slowed down, and it was a good time to rest and reflect. I was going through a divorce at that time, and it marked the start of a new chapter. I was exercising more and reading many books. Now, I struggle to finish one book because my concentration span is shorter, and I am tired and stressed since I am always in the office. Sometimes, I wish we could return to those times without the pandemic. Story 4. No matter what stage of life I experienced, I had moments of extreme highs and lows, and I will always look back with nostalgia. Right now, I have a wife and 2 kids, an abundance of love, a spacious home with land that I never imagined I would live in, and a golden retriever. Work is what I have always wanted to do, yet I still look back on the days when I was homeless with fondness. We are interesting creatures. Story 5. Close to 2 years ago, I was single and absolutely fine with it. I loved my job and thought I had friends back then. Ignorance is bliss. Story 6. I live in Central Florida. When I was 16 years old, I would go to the beach to surf every weekend with my friends Chris, Dave, and Joe. I experienced the excitement of new relationships, feeling like I was in a constant honeymoon stage filled with butterflies. I had no job and no cares in the world. Story 7. When I traveled, I quit my first job after college. I flew to Switzerland with one piece of luggage. I went to the train station and looked up at the screen, having to decide which city I would visit next. Paris, Rome, Amsterdam. I'm smiling just thinking about it. Story 8. The time before my best friend took the lives of my son and fiancé. I should have known his jealousy would consume him. He was always a weak-minded individual, but I felt sympathy for him, so I kept him in my life. I regret that decision every day. Story 9. I would say I was about 24 or 25 years old before my group of friends started drifting apart. We just had a lot of fun in general. Story 10. Right now, my adult children appear to be thriving. My wife, after 26 years of marriage, still seems to enjoy having me around, and I have a clear path to a secure retirement in about 6 to 7 years. I am doing great, and the people I truly care about are doing well. Story 11. When I was a child, even after being severely bullied, I would give anything to go back to being 8 years old with the mentality I have now. My life would be very different. Story 12. The happiest I have ever been is now. Nothing beats having a fully developed brain and financial independence. While I dislike paying bills, my childhood was very difficult. My 20s were challenging as well because I had to unlearn many toxic ideologies that were normalized in my life as a child, which led to uncomfortable conversations about myself. However, I truly feel that my life is my own now. Story 13. When I was a child, I had no responsibilities or bills, and the future seemed full of possibilities. Now, it feels like a complete opposite, and society has taken a downturn. Story 14. 10 years ago, I had it all, but I never knew how to handle it well. Now, I feel like nothing but a mirror. Story 15. I think now. There is impending loss or distress all around me, but I honestly feel like it's the first time I am free to do whatever I want without restraint. I have love. My own cozy rental home in the most beautiful place in town, across the road from the sea. I finally have a job with an amazing manager who truly cares about his employees. I know, a rare find. Sometimes I feel like depression is creeping back, but it is now momentary, and I managed to get myself together rather quickly. I don't think it will get better than this, but I will enjoy it as much as I can. Story 16. I am currently 31 years old. I work remotely and earn a good income for the country I live in. I enjoy good health and have plenty of time for my hobbies, which include reading a lot. Overall, I believe I am happy. Story 17. Summer after high school graduation, I had money, friends, and enjoyed socializing, independence, and so much freedom and fun. I hadn't experienced trauma or mental illness to the extent I do now. There were no panic attacks. I hate my adult life. I can't count on anyone for anything and feel constantly criticized and belittled. I feel unhealthy and sad. It's been awful. I'm the only person I can count on. I'm optimistic for everyone else but feel defeated inside. My life just gets worse. Story 18. Childhood innocence. No responsibility, no true sense of the danger around you. Happy every day. Story 19. Do you know Maslow's hierarchy of needs? It's the pyramid with the most basic needs like food and shelter at the bottom and the highest aspirations like artistic expression at the top. There was a time when I was lonely, and I sought out a significant other. It didn't last, but later, as more troubles came my way, I realized that being lonely was a good sign. It meant that all my other needs had been met, and I was ready to move up the pyramid. Now, I'm not lonely, but it's because problems not of my own doing have pushed me back down into trying to get more basic needs met. I'm looking forward to being lonely again someday. Story 20. In my early 20s to early 30s, I had my own house, car, interesting work, and was single with no kids. I was in great shape and healthy. Although I was broke most of the time, I enjoyed exercising, good food, leisure, the company of women, and leisurely walks. I basically felt like a retired bachelor. Story 21. This era is the happiest I have ever been. I have my own plan and my own goals. I am single and in love with myself. It's amazing. Story 22. So far, probably just after I returned to our car after climbing Moldoviano, Romania's highest mountain at 2,544 meters, I felt this way because I didn't think I would be able to achieve it physically without any major struggles. Story 23. There was a moment I will never forget. I left a job I disliked and returned to an office I loved. It was the end of my first week back, and I barely had any work yet. I was lying on my couch, reading a book and watching my fiancée make dinner. I had never felt such peace. Story 24. I took my nephews, aged 5 and 11, to a local event featuring moon bounces and concessions. After enjoying the moon bounces for a while, we visited the ice cream truck. My 5-year-old nephew, savoring his bomb pop, exclaimed, "Wow, bomb pops and moon bounces. This is the best day ever." Without missing a beat, my 11-year-old nephew replied, "You said that yesterday when we had ice cream." The younger one quickly responded, "Yesterday was the best day too. I really need to match this 5-year-old's energy." Story 25. It's nice to read the comments. I can't remember a time when I was happy, but I remember being the most hopeful in high school. Story 26. 2015 to 2019 was my heyday. I had many friends, made good money, and participated in various activities and sports. I was single and enjoyed a lot of freedom. Story 27. I have had joyful experiences at every stage of my life. Some periods were more challenging than others, but even the toughest times included joyful moments. The happiest moments in my life have been during vacations with my family. Story 28. Ages 1 to 2, apparently. Age 3 was when I first started showing signs of depression that has lasted my entire life, or so I have been told. Story 29. There have been moments of great happiness throughout my life. There have also been moments of extreme unhappiness. Story 30. 15 years old in 2011, I was in a concert band, had friends, and shared a closer relationship with my relatives. My grandmother was still alive, and the hope of eventually finding a girlfriend was present. Story 31. I feel like when I was a child, playing, laughing, and experiencing new things brought me the most happiness. As an adult, I have many responsibilities. Bills, work, and relationships can be really draining, but I have to do my best. Story 32. 2013 to 2019. The happiest years. I met my best friend and married my best friend. I finally broke into marketing with a great team and loved my life. 2020 onwards, despair. My company underwent constant reorganizations, making me switch responsibilities so often it was dizzying. The pandemic hit, my partner left me, and I got divorced. I feel like I have aged 20 years in the past 5 years. Story 33. When I worked and lived for 4 months in Arizona's Sonoran Desert and the White Mountains, in my work van and sometimes a tent, watching and recording bald eagles lay their eggs and raise their chicks through fledging. My field coworker was a middle-aged woman who lived in her old VW camper van. She had conducted these nest watch studies before and had her equipment all ready. Those were the best 4 months of my adult life. The animals, the landscape, and the people I met. Since then, I have struggled to acclimate back to suburban or city life. Every minute spent living in town diminishes my spirit a little more each day. Story 34. When I was traveling with friends, we had no real plans. We were just living in the moment and enjoying the freedom. Story 35. I found myself staring at the ceiling for 5 minutes thinking about this question. When I introduced my boyfriend, now my ex, to my parents, we were watching movies in the living room. My father told him that this particular movie used to make me cry as a child. Suddenly, everyone was laughing and sharing more stories. I remember feeling very fulfilled that day, as if I had no worries. Everything I ever wanted in life was in that living room. Story 36. Every day, I feel happy when I eat, and sometimes I am ecstatic when I shop online because I enjoy material possessions. Story 37. Those random nights with friends where nothing significant happened, but you laughed so hard your stomach hurt. That kind of happiness. Story 38. I would say the happiest I have been is the first time I truly helped someone and knew it made a difference. That quiet kind of happiness lingers with you. Story 39. Before I was 6 years old, I was considered a gifted child and had a sudden realization of time passing and the inevitability of death, both my own and that of my loved ones. I was very confused by it and never talked about it. It took me more than 20 years to be diagnosed with clinical depression. Turns out my depression is resistant to treatment. So yes, it was a challenging 6 years. I had some good moments, thanks to the people who love me, but my mind never stops bringing up dark thoughts to the point that I feel officially crippled. I am around 40 and have never accomplished anything because of this. I apologize for the rant. Take care of your mental health, and don't be ashamed if you sometimes struggle. Story 40. Early childhood, pre-depression, and the last couple of years of college when, for some reason, I experienced less depression. Story 41. Probably now, in my mid-30s. Most of my 20s were spent struggling with money and health problems, which were very much related, and I made little progress in my career as a result. Not to mention the loneliness and insecurity I felt for much of that time. In the last few years, I have gotten my health under control enough to work full-time, made significant strides in my career, and married the beautiful woman who stuck with me through the hard times, making my vow writing easy. I guess I feel like I'm still playing catch-up, but I am a lot less afraid of things going catastrophically wrong again and have managed to create a buffer as insurance even if it does happen. I could not have accomplished any of this without my now wife keeping me sane for the last 10 years. My life isn't much without her and our cat, and I am very grateful for them. Story 42. From summer 2019 until the end of summer 2020, I started drinking heavily in the summer of 2019, which was detrimental to my finances and physical health but beneficial for my social life, which I barely had before then. I met many people during that time who I still hold dear to my heart. I don't see them or hear from them often, but I know that whenever we meet, things will always feel like before. We will always share a good laugh together and genuinely enjoy the time spent together. 2020 was an improvement in that I stopped drinking as much and started exercising for real this time. I have maintained my commitment to fitness for all these years since, and I have a home gym now. Fitness has truly become a lifestyle for me, with a balanced approach since I do not do well with extremes. However, things took a downturn in late summer 2020 when I became obsessed with a guy, leading to a significant mental breakdown that lasted until late 2021. I am doing better now, but I have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which means life can no longer be as enjoyable as it once was. Despite having much more now, 2 cats at home, a home gym, a driver's license, a car, and a boyfriend. I am grateful for all of that. This should be the happiest I have ever been, but my mind just won't allow it. Story 43. When I was 7, I had great grades, plenty of friends, and was financially stable. I even had a girlfriend at that age. It was really nice. Story 44. I think I'm happiest right now as a 64-year-old female. I have a career I love as a realtor, a husband, and a daughter who I cherish. I didn't have either until I was 39 years old. I also have a nice house with a big underground pool, a golden retriever, and cats that I adore. The only thing I didn't acquire that I wanted was a house on a lake or river, but that's okay. My pool and large trees are visible from most rooms. I have a beautiful view. My most exciting time was between the ages of 18 and 33 when I discovered punk rock and new wave music and attended many shows while going to college. I also moved to Florida during that time and experienced a couple of spiritual awakenings. I was pretty happy then, but I am happier now. Story 45. In my early 20s, I had no spouse, no children, and no worries other than paying the bills, which I could do with a well-paying job without significant sacrifice. Story 46. 10th grade was all about first love and excitement. I was driving for the first time, experiencing freedom. I felt naive and carefree with no bills or physical pain. It was so much fun. Story 47. Whenever I was with my grandmother, she was always gardening, crocheting, or knitting. She had funny sayings and stories. She was my world, and her love was pure warmth. She passed away in 2009, and it has been miserable since. Story 48. Before hitting puberty, I was a guy who experienced puberty late, starting at 17. Now, at 18, I live each day wishing I could return to the past. I am unsure if what I feel is depression, as I was a happy child throughout my life. For those wondering, the intense urges I began experiencing were overwhelming me internally. Due to my beliefs, I cannot give in to these urges, so I have to endure each one until they eventually pass. Story 49. I experienced 3 significant moments in my life. The first was when I believed I had found the woman I was going to marry in my early 20s. The second occurred when I thought the band I was in was on the verge of success in my mid to late 20s. The third happened when I resumed making music after a decade of physical and mental illness, along with self-imposed writer's block in my late 30s to early 40s. The first relationship ended when she insisted that I convert to a religious ideology that I could not accept, and we parted ways. The second ended when our guitarist chose to leave the band just before our first tour to pursue a girl he had met on a plane, which lasted about 2 weeks. The third setback came when my first dog passed away, followed by my second dog being diagnosed with cancer, my grandmother dying, and my second dog's cancer recurring, leading to her passing 2 months ago. At 43, I find myself far from the happiest times of my life. However, I believe that those moments are possible again in the future, even if only briefly. So I am holding on to that hope for now. Story 50. When my youngest beat cancer, she was diagnosed with stage 3 brain cancer at age 4, and we really thought we were going to lose her. Within a year, she was cancer-free. Hearing that from the doctor made me happier than ever. Story 51. When I was between the ages of 8 and 11, I lived in my own little mental bubble. I was a sweet girl who always saw the good in people. Even when others did not treat me kindly, it didn't register. I just kept on being happy. The thing that really made the biggest difference was my older brother. He was my idol. In my eyes, he was a superhero and could do no wrong. He was my best friend. We spent our days being each other's confidants, playing pretend with stuffed animals and exploring our neighborhood with other kids on our bikes. Our mom always had something for us to stay occupied with, be it a craft project or something to explore. When she didn't provide us with activities, we entertained ourselves with our imaginative worlds of Legos and stuffed animal adventures. I will always remember those years fondly. Story 52. During a 5-month sabbatical I took because of COVID-19, I honestly missed the pandemic. Story 53. I met the best friends I have ever seen. I confessed to my crush of 8 years but was indirectly rejected. I felt nervous every time I interacted with a female. These were truly the best times of my life. Story 54. When the United States was not led by an authoritarian. Asking people to wear masks during a pandemic is not authoritarian. Story 55. When I moved to my grandparents' house, I was 2.5 years old, wearing my favorite blue dress and white shoes. I remember my grandpa carrying me around, and I kept looking at the ceiling because it felt closer. Story 56. I would say high school was certainly the most fun. That said, I don't remember much from being 6 years old, but I do know that my mom made all my meals, did my laundry, I had no bills, and my only responsibility was to be home by dark. Story 57. Of course, it was when my child was born. I know it may sound like a boring and typical answer, but that's the truth. Before that, I remember being 16 or 17 years old and playing World of Warcraft, Halo, and Gears of War all day long with my friends. There were no worries about work, relationships, or anything else. Just playing with the boys. Story 58. When I had a girlfriend in middle school, she was not much of a girlfriend at that point. I had been single since then and had made no promises until just the other day. Story 59. In my sophomore year of high school, I met friends with whom I could truly be myself and spend time. It was a great experience, and I hope they are doing well. Story 60. High school was stress-free and adventurous, and the 1990s were great before cell phones changed the way people live and interact. Story 61. Living in Spain for 2 years was an incredible experience. The culture and laid-back lifestyle exemplify how people should truly live. I can't wait to return. Story 62. My first summer in the city where I attended university, I lived in my very first apartment. Being newly legal to drink, my newfound sense of independence felt amazing. The first few weeks after bringing my baby home were challenging. I experienced the baby blues, but having this new, snuggly creature was incredible. Seeing my partner as a dad brought me closer to my parents, and even waking up with her throughout the night made me feel so happy. Story 63. Junior year. I had all the right classes and was in love, as much as a 16 or 17-year-old could be. I started a new job and was taking care of myself. It was great, and it was only a year ago. Story 64. I had a wonderful period from 2008 to 2018. My job was amazing. I had enough money to survive and enjoy life, and I had great friends and wonderful dating partners. When our CEO retired, the new leader was not as effective, and I experienced constant anxiety until the pandemic hit, leading to many of us losing our jobs. Since then, I have not felt the same sense of security, success, and enjoyment. Story 65. Between November 30th, 2024, and December 14th, 2024, I talked with the person I had a crush on for more than 2 years, and I felt hope for the first time. However, it doesn't matter now, as I went through and am still going through one of the worst times of my life. I am happy that it happened. Story 66. The first year of my relationship with my ex-wife felt loving and exhilarating almost every day, with endless possibilities. We loved spending every free moment together, and it felt so comfortable and natural. Story 67. We lived interstate on the central coast of New South Wales, Australia, from 2016 to 2020. I had many friends, and we would ride our bikes together every weekend. We formed a club and participated in numerous charity rides, meeting amazing people and helping a lot of individuals. I even stopped registering my car and rode my bike for work and leisure. The weather was great, the roads were great, and the people were great. Just before the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, we moved back to Victoria and left all of that behind. I ride maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and I miss it so much. Not just the riding, but biking without my friends just doesn't feel the same. I've never felt the same since. Story 68. I am extremely grateful for my children, wife, and home, but they come with immense stress, lack of sleep, and an inability to do anything I enjoy for myself. I had to make choices. In my late 20s, I had a career, my own money, traveled, and did whatever made me happy. I vividly remember a day when I packed a cooler, rode my bike 10 miles up the coast, laid on the beach, fished for an hour, and thought I would go into the city that night with friends to see where the evening took me. Story 69. My 33rd birthday is very close to the holidays and, as such, it is always forgotten, even by me. I had never really celebrated this day before. However, on that day, I came home from work and made dinner for my family. While cleaning up in the kitchen, my husband and kids turned off the lights and entered with a lit birthday cake they had made earlier and hidden until that moment. They sang happy birthday to me, and as I looked at each of their faces illuminated by the glow of the candles, proud of themselves for surprising me, I felt so much love. I cried happy tears looking at each of them, grateful for my little family and so blessed to have them. I shed tears of happiness and gratitude in that moment. Story 70. Today, my childhood wasn't particularly happy. It was marked by my parents' violent marriage and neglect, or by my loving but overwhelmed grandmother living in poverty. Later, I experienced neglect and violence with my father and stepmother. As a young adult, I struggled as a young mother in an unhappy marriage with insufficient money and debt. Now I have a stable job, I am debt-free, and I have even managed to save some money. Recently, I went on vacation abroad for the first time in my life. It's challenging because I am a single mother and my youngest child has special needs. Story 71. I am 33 years old and recently threw a birthday party at my local Irish bar. I had my dream job, traveled the country, and made amazing friends. My mom was still with us and I lived in Chicago. Life is great now too. I am married to my dream partner, own my own yoga studio, and am trying to start a family. Story 72. I love my life. I love being a mom and my daughter. I have many good friends whom I care about. I enjoy going to my job every day. I love watching my daughter grow, but I also wish I could keep her as my baby forever. My heart is full. Story 73. I took mushrooms years ago and remembered that I had never experienced being happy before in my entire life. The closest thing to feeling this way was hiking alone in the woods, particularly one event in the Italian Alps when I was only partially intoxicated at 5 a.m. The closest feeling I ever had to experiencing anything in a specific way was with alcohol. Story 74. I attended college from 2014 to 2016 and worked in my last job from 2021 to 2023. I loved that job. It felt like my dream job. Unfortunately, I was made redundant. Story 75. Now, I am a 56-year-old survivor of childhood trauma and domestic abuse. I have my own home, a beautiful garden, and an allotment that I'm passionate about, along with fulfilling hobbies such as gardening, where there's always something new to do. I have eliminated toxic relationships, as I've learned to set strong boundaries. I have a challenging yet creative profession that I love, and I am part of a supportive faith community. Life is not perfect. I grieve not having children of my own or a family. However, I have learned to enjoy and appreciate the benefits of solitude while still being sociable. I faced many difficult trials early in life, and I know there will be more to come. As we all have challenges in this life, I fought for this. At age 21, I was ready to end it all because of the trauma. But living authentically in the beautiful life I have created, much like the flowers in my garden, is the best response to my abusers and anyone who tried to harm me. I credit all of this to God and consider myself blessed. For anyone currently suffering from toxic relationships, never lose the value of your own company and strive to be comfortable in your own space. Remember, you are never truly alone. Story 76. Art school camp as a teenager, my postdoctoral research in the statistics department, starting my first real job as a scientist, and when my baby daughter meets someone she truly connects with. Story 77. Right now, honestly, I am 23 years old. I feel wiser than I ever have. I have my finances in order, my own car, and a supportive group of friends and family. I have a wonderful girlfriend who feels like my perfect match. I have a well-paying job, and I am in good health. I cannot say I wake up every day feeling amazing, but my morale is the highest it has ever been, and I am grateful. Story 78. When I was hitchhiking through Norway a few years ago, I had no job, no ties, and no schedule. Just complete freedom and a whole host of nice people who made it the most incredible adventure. Story 79. A couple of months ago, when I was in my most recent relationship, I was the happiest I had ever been. Even though she left for reasons I still cannot understand, I still feel a lot of love for her. Story 80. I have lived my entire adult life paycheck to paycheck. I had my first child at 19. Because adult life has been unending and relentless stress, the years between 14 and 18 are my happiest times. I hope to one day enjoy adult life, but I continued to have children even though I was always drowning. I thought my children needed siblings. They do love each other, but the incredible stress of raising them when I can barely take care of myself is not something I would redo if given the chance. I finally divorced their father because he was always more of a burden than any actual help. He has a good job but spends it all on himself. Now we have shared custody, and he is forced to pay for, clean up after, and take care of them and himself on his days. I appreciate it. It doesn't take away the dark cloud of financial insecurity I constantly live under, but I at least get some peaceful days. Story 81. When I was a freshman in college, and then again when my youngest two children were toddlers, the people I lived with were extremely excited about the fact that I made fruit salad. Story 82. In 2015, it was my wedding anniversary. My husband and I went on a weekend trip and had special shirts made. It is one of my fondest memories. Story 83. The day I bought my own house after living in a rundown house without hot water for 8 years. I grew up poor my whole life, and while I care about my parents, they both made terrible financial decisions that I had doubts about even as a teenager. When the job loss happened, it confirmed my thoughts, and I had the chance to take control of my life. I have accomplished more in 8 years than my stepfather did in the past 20. Unlike most, my happiest years weren't as a child with competent parents handling everything. My happiest years are now where I decide my own well-being. In my early 20s, people doubted I knew what I was doing. But now I have the track record to prove that even back then, I was wiser than both of them. Story 84. I don't know. I have had happy moments, and I can't say I've had a horrible life, but I struggle to identify when I was happiest. When I was 15, I went to England, and that was a high point, but it was followed by not-so-great events. I can't even remember when I was genuinely happy for longer than a couple of hours. Everything feels like a blur of anxiety and depression. I often find myself in situations that do not lead to a happy outcome. One thing is certain. If I am ever happy, there is always someone who brings me back to a dark reality. Story 85. Today, I am happy every day. The older I get, the happier I am for being healthy enough to enjoy another day on Earth. Story 86. This has been the happiest time of my life. I am 70 years old, and I met the love of my life in 2012. I have experienced short periods of extreme happiness in my life, but I know this joy will last until we leave this earth. Story 87. I was living in my car and working at the Air National Guard in Reno. After work, I would go to the gym to work out and shower. Since I wasn't getting paid yet, my meals consisted of canned tuna and chips. I would sit by the river and reflect on life. I spent my free time reading and playing Pokemon Go. I would go to sleep early and work out again in the mornings. Although I had no money and lacked direction, I felt free to roam, wander, and simply exist. Story 88. I backpacked for 2 years. I was financially secure during that time and had a family home to return to. It was amazing. Story 89. When I turned 18, I no longer had to go to school. I could just relax, sleep, and wake up at 11 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. Story 90. Every day, to be honest, my job is a fun place to be. My wife is my absolute best friend, and I love the support system of friends and family in our lives. I laugh a lot, do my best to maintain a positive attitude, and I believe every day is a gift waiting to be unwrapped. Story 91. During my early 20s, I was very happy because my partner and I created wonderful memories together. Life was moderate at that time until we experienced our quarter-life crisis. Everything became difficult and we went through ups and downs. The cycle has continued to this day. However, if I had the chance to go back in time, I would definitely choose to return to that period and pause it. Story 92. I felt the happiest in my life in 2020 during lockdown. My sister came back from college, and I was with my family at home. That time really mended some of my relationships with my parents and brother, and it was nice to be together. I also had a little romance brewing that felt like I was living in a movie. The Lakers won the championship that year, and I completed my undergraduate degree online. It was a nice time, despite the hardships the world faced. Story 93. There were just a few months, probably January or February 2024, when I felt like I was the happiest. I had friends and my boyfriend, I still have him, but I lost my friends. It was a very happy phase. It felt like I had everything. People to support me and love me. I had issues with my family, but it was a great time. Now that I don't have friends to laugh and study with, it hurts so much. Apart from that, there have been days when I have been very happy, like my boyfriend's birthday. We usually enjoy a lot on his birthday and Valentine's Day because that day I went out to meet him. We had fun, I came home late, and no one scolded me. So yes, it was a happy day. Story 94. I think maybe now. I have always been content with my life, often feeling many positives. My kids are little. They are lovely and interesting, and they make me feel loved. I also have a hobby that fulfills me with experiences. Motorcycling. Lastly, I have a stable and good job that allows me to navigate life with security. I excel at my work, my supervisors value me, and it provides the flexibility I need to be part of my family and pursue my hobbies. Story 95. Thanksgiving 1994. 2,300 miles from home, wandering the United States, with no agenda and no plans. I found myself alone in a house full of cats, all my roommates gone. High and eating macaroni and cheese for dinner, I felt aimless. Some may say this was a low point, but after months on the road, it became a turning point. The driving desire to escape and be free had been fulfilled. About a month later, I would head back home to unpack what I learned during my journey. Happiness is relative, and it changes over time if we allow ourselves to grow and not cling. Story 96. I feel fortunate that every stage has been wonderful, but I am especially enjoying this moment. We have a 7-month-old daughter after 2 years of infertility, and my heart melts every time she smiles at me. I am truly blessed. Story 97. Aside from the memories of my childhood spent with my immediate family, cousins, and friends, I was happiest from September 2017 to December 2017. It was my best 4-month period. Story 98. In 2018, I finished university and got a great job. I lived with my then-girlfriend, now wife. We both worked on weekends and had midweek days together. We lived in a beautiful place and enjoyed it with our dogs, with very few other people around. It was everything I wanted and everything I hope to have again someday. Story 99. In my 20s, from 19 to 21, I experienced a breakup that I didn't understand, which led to depression. If I could go back, I would tell myself, she's not the one. She's struggling, and this has nothing to do with you. Get up, you can do this. Stay fit, keep drumming, study harder, and think about your plans after you earn your degree. Story 100. When my kids were young, we had so many good times. We laughed all the time. I remember taking my son to baseball practice when he was 5 or 6. He would stand on third base, pick up sand with his Power Rangers glove, and pour it over his head. Fast forward 15 years, and he hit a 405-foot home run over the center field wall in college. Story 101. Sailing with my friends in their small sunfish sailboat during the summer after high school was unforgettable. We were all preparing to go our separate ways soon. The ocean often tossed us about, creating a sublime experience. Story 102. I think it was with my first love. But we become so boring when we fall in love, so it was a lost cause. Story 103. The summer of 2022 was a positive time. Work was good, my health was good, my mental health was great, my marriage was strong, and my relationships were fulfilling. However, since the end of that summer, life has continued to fall apart in every imaginable way. Story 104. I walked into a small cave and waterfall area in Iceland, just off from one of the main tourist attractions. I had to jump across some rocks to get into the area. The sun was shining, water was falling all around me, and it was one of the coolest experiences I have ever felt. Story 105. In 2020, right before the pandemic hit, my group of friends was turning 30. We were all finding our footing in adulthood in a major city, and it felt like anything was possible. Most of us were transplants and basically each other's family here. If I'm being honest, the vibes were impeccable. Then the world changed forever. Story 106. When she finally signed the divorce papers is always number one. Doubling my money in 2022 runs a close second. Story 107. When I was a child, I felt a unique sense of happiness that was not tied to achievements. Nothing I could achieve would match that feeling. Story 108. Over the last 2 years, I have come to a realization about my life. I never liked being a kid. I hated not having control over my life and not being taken seriously. From my early teens until about age 26, my life was filled with one mild trauma after another, and I was more or less depressed the entire time. Now I have a stable life filled with things I love. My husband, my child, my home, and my hobbies. In the past few years, I have identified some major aspects of myself, which have helped me accept and love myself as I am. There are some things in my life I would like to change, but they are currently unattainable. I guess it's good to have something to work towards. Story 109. At the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, for some odd reason that I can't quite pinpoint, I was happy despite how wrong everything else was around us. I had just started university, my family was happy, my friends were great, and Christmas was wonderful. Christmas 2020 was the last Christmas with my mom before she was diagnosed with cancer and passed away 2 years later. I look back at this time in my life with fondness because it was the last time that the most important thing to me, my family, was truly happy. Story 110. I do not remember the last time I was truly happy. Things just keep getting worse. I acknowledge that I have made mistakes and I regret them, but nothing seems to improve. Story 111. I suppose during the love bomb phase of the relationship with my narcissistic ex-girlfriend, innocent young me had no idea what was about to happen. Story 112. I would say summer 2021 was a special time. It was the end of the second lockdown, and there was a feeling I can't quite explain. You know that feeling you get when watching a sunset? I experienced that a lot. The UEFA European Championship was on. I could finally see my extended family again, and I went on a camping trip with my cousins. There were no exam results to worry about, and school in June was enjoyable because the focus was on more relaxed lessons. Overall, it felt amazing. It was probably my favorite summer ever. Story 113. When I spent quality time with my dad and mom, we didn't have a lot of money. We would just buy dinner for the three of us for around 200 rupees. But we still enjoyed it over gossip, laughter, arguments, and conversation. I would happily sleep those nights. I still remember them. I have never felt that kind of happiness or love again. Never be shy or run away from spending good time with your parents or loved ones, because you may not get that chance again. Story 114. It all went downhill from age 18, which is a decade ago. I had an overall happy childhood, not perfectly functional, but I was content during that time. A lot has to change for me to find happiness now. It doesn't mean I'm not grateful. I just am not happy, smiling, relaxed, or enjoying life on a daily basis. Story 115. I think I achieved maximum happiness around 2017. I made a significant change in how I approached life. I altered my hormones and neurotransmitters, which allowed me to break free from the learned helplessness I had experienced for so long. I essentially embraced my desires and began doing what I truly wanted. Unfortunately, I made some poor decisions during that time, which led to unfortunate consequences. Sometimes, being highly neurotic and risk-averse can protect you from certain situations. Story 116. I would say 15 to 16 years old, with no responsibilities except for school. The feelings were much more intense then. There was a sense that you had the world at your feet and that anything was possible. It was a time of being less jaded about life. Story 117. I think I was in 7th grade. I still remember that day. It was a welcome party for all 7th graders. It consisted of physical activities and obstacles. where we were fed spicy or bitter foods while blindfolded. At the end, we had an activity where we threw water balloons filled with water at each other. Story 118. With my former partner, I was happy and felt incredible by his side. I plan to get back up and start again after almost 1 year and 6 months, which makes it all worthwhile. Story 119. When I was dating and then married to my husband, I was between the ages of 27 and 35. The first weekend I spent with my current boyfriend was on my 40th birthday. Story 120. In my early 20s, I worked and went snowboarding with my friends 3 days a week. Although I struggled to connect with others at bars, I still had a great time. Story 121. In 2007, I was 6 years old. Spider-Man 3 was released, and I had one of the best summers ever. I visited many places with my parents, and I received the things I wanted. Life was good back then. I will be turning 24 in a month. Story 122. Unbeknownst to me at the time, the happiest moment of my life was when I was enjoying a home-cooked meal prepared by my dad. Story 123. An hour when I thought I had found love turned out to be fake and destroyed my life. I have never been happy otherwise because you need love to be happy. It is the single biggest determinant of happiness. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.